Welcome to WebStylePress. We have looked into how can we create CSS only radio buttons and checkboxes. We have looked into how can we create CSS and JavaScript based radio buttons and checkboxes. We have learned how can we create radio buttons and checkboxes where we have separate input and label tags, where input is not inside label. We have learned how to create iOS style radio buttons and checkboxes by using CSS. We have looked into how Tilda and Plus CSS selectors help us in making useful CSS selections. This video is even more special. We will create iOS style radio buttons and checkboxes by using CSS and jQuery. You do not need jQuery or JavaScript to create custom radio buttons and checkboxes because CSS is enough to do that. If input is inside label, clicking at label toggles radio buttons or checkboxes. If input is outside label, we can use tilde or plus CSS selector to toggle input radio buttons or checkboxes. We can use CSS pseudo classes to style custom radio buttons or checkboxes. So CSS is sufficient, but I'm still going to show you how can you do it by using jQuery. Let me give you a few quick tips before that. Tilde CSS selector is used to select all elements next to an element. All elements. And plus CSS selector is used to select only first next element to an element. Even if input radio button or checkbox is not inside label, you can still use for attribute in label and use relevant inputs ID to toggle that input when you click at label as well. For example, this is an input. Type checkbox, name box, and ID box 1. Then we have got label, some text. Label has got for attribute, and for the for we will use ID. I used inputs ID as value for the for attribute. Input is placed outside label here. When I will click at label, its input will be toggled. So there are so many ways to do it. Let me show you. Box 2, box 3, box 3, see, this is label. If I click at label, checkbox gets toggled. Even though these are separate, label is separate, input is separate, but for attribute at label helps, and for attribute will need inputs ID. So these were few concepts before we start. Moving on, I have got this HTML linked is a CSS file. Twitter Bootstrap is linked for basic styling. At the end we have got jQuery, we have got our custom.js file, we have got CSS file here, custom.js file is here, and this is our HTML. In HTML we have got this radios section and we have got 2 columns here. Then we have got this section for the checkboxes. I will create two groups of radio buttons and few checkboxes. Then we will apply iOS design and toggle them by using CSS and jQuery. This is one radio group. It's a group because we have same name for each input in it. Input name radio 1, input name radio 1, input name radio 1. Name is same and these are radio. Type is radio. These are radio buttons. We have outer wrapper class named as radios, enclosing all input radios in a group. Each input radio button along with its label is inside a class named as radio. This div, see radio, and inside it we have got label and we have got input. Then this is div with class radio and we have got label inside it and then input inside it. Radios, radio, and here is class active. If this div will receive active class, this section, this radio will be active and this input will receive checked attribute and that will be toggled. This is our second group of radio buttons. Label and inputs are side by side again, and but the classes are same. Radios, radio. This is second radio button group and it's got inputs with the type radio with the name radio 2, radio 2, radio 2. So this is a group and this is a group, but their classes are same. Radios, outer wrapper class, and then radio, then this div with class radio, and inside it we have got label and actual input. Then we have got these checkboxes. Outer class is checkboxes, and then we have got bunch of divs with class checkbox, and active will determine this state for this area. If it will have active class, the checkbox inside it will be active and this input here will receive checked attribute. So checkboxes, each div with checkbox class, and then we have got input with different name, check 1, check 2, check 3, check 4 with type checkbox. So we have got checkboxes as well, and we have got two groups of radio buttons. And here is the output. This is one group, radio buttons group. This is second group. And we have got these checkboxes here. Inside our CSS, we will use some basic styling. Label is at position relative because styled iOS button will use CSS pseudo elements with absolute position. Refresh. Radio, this is label, and this is real input. Now we will design our iOS style inputs in CSS, both checked and unchecked states. And this is for regular style. Radio, we have got div with radio class. Inside it we have got label, and for labels before and after. And then similarly we have got checkbox, and inside checkbox div with class checkbox we have got label, and we will have before and after pseudo states or classes for these elements as well. In fact these will be similar, so we can combine these. We will use CSS pseudo elements on label. At before pseudo element, we will use iOS button track. At after pseudo element, we will use a rounded button or rounded shape. Position absolute. Content will be empty. Right 0. Top 4px. Width, let's use 60 pixels, and let's use half of its length as height. Border radius 20 pixels, and then background color it's track, so this one. Refresh, and we've got this track. We have to use this use a rounded ball here, kind of a circle we need here. So these elements don't exist in HTML, but we are creating these via CSS. So absolute position absolute for after element, and content 0, right 0, and top 4 pixels. Width, let's use 26. Height will be 26, and border radius will be 50%, and background color will be white. And this is regular state, not checked or clicked state. For label, and these are pseudo elements at that label. Save, refresh, and we have got these. We will need to change this to something like 6 pixel, and from top will be 6 pixels, and right let's use 2 pixels. Save, and here we go. So we've got this button. We need this circle here at the left side. Transform, translate x-axis transformation -30 pixel. Save. All right. So for radio and checkbox, we have got our iOS styled buttons now. Now for the checked state. Divs with class name radio and active will represent active state. Like we have this radio group, and if this div with class radio will have active class, then this will be marked as checked radio button. For that we'll use radio.active and label before, and also checkbox active, label before, and similarly we will have after. So before state is this, background color was white, grayish, and here instead of gray, when the box will be checked, when checkbox or radio will be checked, we will use green color, that is 4cc A5E, I believe. This is green color. And then for the after element was a rounded ball, and it had got a transformation property. We can play with that. Transform, translate 0. So this is the active state. We have used active classes here. For this is active, and here this is active for checkbox. So these are active, but click is not working, and actual input radio buttons and checkboxes are not being checked. So we will cater that in jQuery by using jQuery or JavaScript. Our design is done. Let's handle JavaScript part. In our custom.js file, in document.ready, we will use two functions. So jQuery document.ready function for checkboxes trigger check boxes, and then trigger radios. Function trigger checkboxes, and then this is function trigger radios. When DOM will be ready, these two functions will be fired for checkboxes and for radios. First of all, let's cater that if these are active, if these checkboxes, this radio is active, this checkbox is active, so this radio and this checkbox should be checked, of course. Let's cater that first. Check active checkbox. Checkboxes dot checkbox dot each function, we will take all checkboxes and then this dot if this has class active, if this checkbox, any checkbox from the list, this has class active, then what to do? This means this checkbox, that div dot find input inside that div and take its attribute and add checked attribute. Checked. This is for checkbox, and similar will be for radios. Dot radio, each this dot has class active, this find input attribute checked. Okay, refresh, and as you can see, these are checked. I am changing these states and here. So at page reload, this should be checked and this should be checked. Refresh, and there you go. And as you can see, this part is same like this. So we could just have used only this one block of code for these two. That would have been worked as well, but I am keeping this separate, just keeping this separate. Okay, so this was check active checkbox, check active radio. Now we will handle click events for radio buttons and checkboxes. For checkbox first, okay, handle click. On this checkbox click, we will add active class to clicked checkbox. This is the radio, by the way. This is checkbox. On click of checkbox, we will add active class to clicked checkbox. So jQuery checkbox dot click. Checkbox was clicked. Then this is our function, and now we will just use this dot toggle class, and our class is active, that will be toggled. Refresh. So this is being toggled, active class is being toggled, but these checkboxes, real checkboxes, are not being checked. We need attribute here. We will have to toggle attribute there as well. That we're going to do in a moment. First, see this. This is label, by the way. This is checkbox. If I click here, you see this active class is being toggled, and style is in our CSS file. So close this. So at checkbox click, toggle class active, and after that we want to toggle attribute. If this dot find input dot attribute checked. So if this find input inside it and see if there is attribute named as checked there, applied there. If yes, then remove attribute, checked, or otherwise add attribute. In else case, add attribute. So basically toggle attribute that is checked. Refresh, and there is some mistake. No errors in console. Hard refresh. Nope. Okay, here is something. When we have to add the attribute, we have to use it like this. So refresh. Now these are being toggled. Okay, so this is done. Checkboxes are done. These are radios, and for radios we will handle click now. Let's copy the same logic. Handle click, and we have got radio here. Radio will be clicked. Radio click function. This dot toggle class active. Here we will remove checked class and attribute from inputs within same radio group, and then we will add class and checked attribute to clicked input. So this dot closest outer element radios dot find radio inside it, and here we will remove class active from all radios. So a radio was clicked, find outer wrapper radios that has got all the inputs in that particular radio groups, and then find all radio inside that radio group, remove class active, and then we have to remove attribute as well. This dot closest radios find radio, and radio there's input inside that radio div. This is wrapper radios, and we have got this radio inside radio we have got label and input, right? So radio input, and here will be remove attribute, remove attribute, and attribute was checked, that will be removed. And then we have to add class and add attribute. This dot add class that will be added will be active. This dot add class. This radio was clicked, add class. First remove active class and checked attribute from every radio button. Then take this radio and add class active, this div with class radio, add class active, and then for the attribute part, this dot find input, same take this and find input inside it and add attribute checked to it. Save, refresh, and here radio design is being toggled. Design wise it's being toggled, and as you can see this actual radio is also being toggled in this group, and for this group this will toggle separately. And for its animation part we will just modify CSS a little bit. This is regular state and this is checked state change. So for regular state we have to make some change. Here we will use transition, and for all, transition for all, anything that's being changed use some transition for that for 0.3 seconds, and use effect of ease in out for this property and for this class, but not at this one. This transition is used for only one element at regular state. For active or clicked or checked state we do not repeat this. Okay, now refresh, and now it's being animated. It is animated. Checkboxes, see this checked attribute, this class active and this checked attribute. Active class gone, checked gone. And now we can just hide the inputs. Don't use it like this, by the way. This is a tutorial, and for tutorial's sake it is alright. I can just target input, but you cannot just target input in your project because your project will have a lot of inputs, and by doing this every input will be hidden. Don't do that, just target the inputs. Or I can do radios. I can do it like I can target the inputs like this here, radios and checkboxes. Checkboxes and radios, yeah. So inside radios and inside checkboxes I do not want real inputs to show, and these are gone. Now this style is clean, our styles are clean. The inputs are at the back, behind the scenes, and those are working, but those are not being displayed because we don't need that. We need to see this style. For example, I inspect the element, I click at input, and if I uncheck this display none, those are there and those are working, but we have not shown them because we don't need them. Save. And this is how you can create iOS styled animated radio buttons and checkboxes by using CSS and jQuery. As easy as that. Alright, thank you for watching this video. Like, share, comment and subscribe Stay tuned and I will see you in the next video.